Hey, good afternoon, everyone. You got Will here today. Looks like we got a single pre-submitted question. I'm going to pull this out and get it in the chat. If you have any questions, as always, you can ask them in the chat in the QA or just use raise hand and I'll unmute you. And you can go ahead and ask your question. As always, we only answer questions that are asked here. We don't have any content besides questions asked from the community. So here's a question. All right, from Atik. I don't see Atik. Put this in the chat. For those of you that are in the lobby or whatever you call it on these things, please feel free. Again, if you have a question, I'm happy to try to answer it for you. You can use chat, QA, or just use the raise your hand function. Atik's question is, do we have a keyboard shortcuts for navigating the studio, or can we create custom keyboard shortcuts? You can create custom keyboard shortcuts, not for the studio, but for your end users. If you were to look at a form, create a designer project for today's meeting. Okay. If I were to create a form and I was to add a text box, here you have the ability to select key triggers. And I can add particular types of triggers with particular behaviors to those keys. So you can both create a tab order, so you can tab through a form and you can create these things, these key triggers. We should have documentation for these things as well. If I search for key trigger, yeah, form control key triggers. So you can't control portal shortcut key function, but you can create custom key trigger behavior for the forms that you generate for your end users. Now, I don't see that Atik is in the meeting, so I can't really follow up on that. So that exhausts our very shallow queue of questions. If you have anything, please do let me know. All right, Alex, if there's time, can you show how to add records, edit record, delete record to a data grid? Sure. I think we have some default actions for this. Let me just delete this. And let's search for data. And we'll find our data grid here. And I believe, do we have data grid add? No, we do for data repeaters. I thought we had, yeah, data grid add button, data grid remove button. And on here, let's see here, just name this data grid 1, and the type would be, I don't know, count. And do I have to bind the buttons? Let's see here. Let's put this in a flow. And we'll fetch our accounts. And we'll come find our form. And then we'll pass in our accounts. Oh, I didn't put a button on that form. That's why. Boom. Okay. Surprised you don't have to actually select the data grid, the form, add, remove. What you're thinking of is actually where you edit the format of it. You pass it in. So here, this uses the report designer so that I can control the format. So I want to add email address and I want to add created on date. And that gives me the columns in my data grid, but I still pass the value into my data grid from an input to the flow. Let's just see really quick. So there's that. So if I select process mining, this is info only. So I think I need to do, let me do this, output all as my grid mode. And then, oh, there you go, add button and remove button, wonderful. That explains my confusion from a moment ago. All right, now if I should be able to now select a row and remove it from the data grid with the remove button. So here's process mining, remove, there it goes. And now I can submit this list without it. So yeah, this is me using add and remove data buttons, which are just form controls in the form designer, along with a data grid set to the appropriate mode, which is probably everything but info only, but definitely output all. And likely when you're dealing with something like this, you're going to want output all, since output all gives you the option to select as well as output everything. I mean to say, right click on the row and see a menu of available actions. Well, then you need to select show actions here. And then you possibly need to ensure you've got the right sort of data type here. So if I click show actions and save this and rerun, I should now be able to come here and right click and get the edit and get the actions for that particular object. So is this what you're asking about, Alex? Enabling action should let you get your right click actions in the same way you can on a normal report in a data grid on a form. Is you're wanting to have a right click add or remove action? That might be difficult to do. I'm not sure how to do that. Yeah, I don't think you can do that on right click actions. I think you need form buttons for that today. Because the entity doesn't really, these are entity actions, so they show up anywhere the entity shows up at. And they don't really know where the entity is being accessed from in the system today. You want to create custom actions for the right click? We're talking in the chat right now, just so everyone's aware.
I just realized that I could have said all this instead of typing.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, please.
Yeah, the idea is, when you right click on a record, you have a bunch of actions because you're using a count. You have a fine set of actions. I don't know where they come from, but in most cases, what it will be shown in that grid is, records from my database. So where do I bind actions to that menu? I imagine that those actions should invoke a flow, right? Thereafter, pass the row, the record of where the action has to be But
This is just database data that's not decisions created.
exactly.
The concept you're going to look for is a thing we call external entities. So
Yeah,
I'm going to create.
sorry,
Go
it
ahead.
could be a table in the decisions database that I create, right?
Yeah.
Database
External
type.
is relative. It just means not a decisions owned
Exactly.
data type.
Correct, correct, correct.
So like let's say here I'll create a database table integration and I'm just going to use account just because it's there. So I'm going to go find entity account, but this is going to be effectively your data, right? I'll create a bunch of steps, right? And then let me go and I'll recreate this flow with your example here. So here's a flow and I'm going to find my step, which is integration database, local connection, right? And then here's my table I created, and I'm just going to use get all. Now this could be external or internal or data in the decisions database. It doesn't make a difference to this scenario. I'm going to set ignore the limit count. I'm going to come create a new form. And here's a button. And let me delete this grid. And again, I'll search for data. And I will find my data grid advanced. I'll bring this over. My type, I'm going to go to recent here and find that data type, which is not that. There it is, DBO entity account. That's the type I just created. Output all. This will be called DB data. And my output name will be DB data output. And then I can go create my report. And in here, it'll be the same columns because I'm just using an account. It shouldn't matter. There's that. And then what I have is I'm going to enable actions like I did before, which is somewhere. Ooh. Hold on. Okay, is it only giving me enable actions if it's a decisions type? That's unexpected. Let me see here really quick. Let me pass my data in. Oops. Okay, if we run this, boom. Okay, no right click actions. Okay. So what I'm going to do then, let me try something. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go create an external entity. So I'm going to come to create data types integration, user defined types, external entity here. It's called external entity test one. I'm not actually going to, I'm going to give it one property. I don't even think I need to. That's all good and save this. Now, this, unlike a normal data type, doesn't give, it gives me a configuration folder, which is here. Let's see here.
And then you have user actions over here at the top, right?
And then it gives me these what we might call plumbing flows. And I have to define how to find these things. Ultimately, all I need is just a single, I believe, fetch step. This first one tells me what property is the ID. It's kind of strange to use the flow designer to do this, but it is what it is. So here's entity, and we will say str1 is the ID. That's fine. I think actually this is all I need. And then I'm going to create a quick user action. Leave that all the same, create. And I'm going to do this. And to quick sanity check myself, I'm just going to create a report. And then I'm going to find my data type. So common, local connection. Here's my data type, DBO entity account, email address, employee ID. Okay. And actually I need account ID. Let me do this. And then action, override action context. The type is going to be my external entity type. There's, maybe I said ext, external entity test one. The action context field is going to be the account ID. Okay. Let me run this. Do I get actions? No actions. Okay, because I need to fetch. Bear with me. Just need to come back. I'll walk back through this again. I'm bumbling a bit. Let me just see if I can get this set up. Now I'm going to fetch my account. I'm going to fetch from not my account. I'm going to fetch. Oh, my thing. So I'm just going to do a. I don't want to create a. All right, let me do this the right way. Let me save this. Let me come back here. Let me go to my table. Let me right click and manage additional access. Oh, actually, no, I don't need to do this. Sorry. Bear with me. I'm going to come in here, back to fetch, and I'm going to go to my database folder, and I'm going to do get by ID. That's what I want. Get by ID. Okay, great. And then the ID is going to be the ID. That's the thing. Now it knows what the ID is because I defined it in that first flow. And then here I'm going to do build data, and I'm just going to select the output of this. I'll just select email address as str1. Okay, save this. Now, if I come back here and I run my report, there's my user action flow. Right. So I have to set up, I need to use an external entity, and I need to have it configure at least that ID in that fetch flow. I can walk back through that in just a minute. But now if I come back to flow 2 and I look here, and can I change that in this? Let me edit this, come to actions here and do the same thing. I'm not sure if this will work or not. I'm gonna try it though. There's external entity test 1, action context fields, account ID, boom, 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 save. Let me try to let me close this. Oh, there's show actions now. Okay. And do this. And if I debug, I should get user action flow 1. Great. Okay, perfect. So what I just did is put external or non-decisions data into a data grid, and I use external entities to create a custom action for that data inside of the portal. And you can, of course, create as many actions as you want. And the concepts I use there are override action context on the report here, which allows me to specify a custom action context. And all I do is I give it the I say what property on this report is the primary key of the type that I'm mentioning here. And then I use an external entity to get those actions. And an external entity gives me these flows. I have to define what the ID on my thing is and then set up the fetch flow. Once I have that, any of the actions which I start defining here, like user action flow 1, then those can show up on a report or a advanced data grid form as right-click actions. Does that give you what you're after, maybe, Alex?
I think so. So let me clarify something that is important, because I was trying to do all this with a simple database structure, right? When I created my data, it was a database structure.
Okay.
But what you're telling me, if I heard it properly, is that I need to add to that database structure an extension entity or an entity extension, so you can add user actions to that particular thing. Is that correct, or am
Actually, it
I?
should be more simple than that. On a database structure, let's call this DB test 1. There is just this enable actions property that you have to set to true by default.
Okay.
Unlike an entity, which gives you that for free, you have to set enable actions. Now you can create data, and then any of the actions you create in the DB test configuration folder will show up as right-click action. So yours is probably more simple. My example was, so a simple database structure data is data that is a data type created by decisions. It knows about it, and it can, any of these actions you create here will show up. But external entity data can be completely independent of decisions, right? Data and living in a database somewhere that you might need to create some admin reports for. Like you've got a request from your customer to create like a web application to manage data in some other tables, right? Because they don't want to go through DBAs or IT for that. This external entity concept gives you the ability to create those rich right-click action context views of that external data. I think in your example, you just need to set the enable actions to true, which is set by default to false on your simple database structure data.
Now, I saw that, I'm trying to remember where my database created a configuration folder. Does every database structure create a configuration folder?
I think it only does once you have enable actions set to true. Otherwise, it may not.
Yeah, because none of mine does. Okay, let me play with that for a sec. I think that simple data structure. Okay.
Let's see. Yeah, there's no configuration folder. But if I edit that type I just created, oops, not that one. I'm going to edit test 1, 2, 3, enable actions, save. Should get a configuration folder. There it is. Yeah. So only when enable actions is set to true does it generate.
That's probably what I was missing. Okay. Perfect. Perfect.
So you should just be able to use your simple database structure data with enable actions set to true in your advanced data grid.
Got it. Is there any other question in the docket for you to answer? I don't want to monopolize the time.
No, I don't have anything else right now. So if anyone has questions, please use raise hand, ask in chat, or ask in QA. But go ahead, Alex.
If you go back to the data grid, can you configure either the background of a row or a background of a cell based on a certain?
Should be able to.
That
so
you would
let's click on email address. This should operate like a normal report. So here,
in the report itself.
Yeah, so in email address, I'm going to come to color rules, add, and I'm going to pick or create a rule. I'm going to create a new rule, create a statement rule, sure. And here I'm going to create input data, email address. Okay, and then I'm going to write a rule that says if the email address is so it does not equal admin@decisions.com. Once I have that, I can click save. I can come back. Click save. I can come back. I can update inputs. I can click here and I can map email address to my input. This will be the inputs of your rule here. And then I'll say set the background color to some ugly green. And I'll save this. And I will save this. And I'll debug this. And if I'm right, there it'll apply that at the cell or row level, depending on where you click. I clicked on a column and looked at that. You can also do this for the entire row, and there's a few different options in that menu where you can set if you want it foreground, foreground or background, or icons, or some other options as well.
Perfect. Perfect.
So, if you're dealing with larger data sets, I'd recommend keeping to reports and not pages and not forms. Reports handle large data sets better than forms do, because this forms is going to call that data and try to load all of it into memory, where the reports are actually doing scoped fetches. Other than that, if the data is not, large, then no issues.
Okay. Define large.
Oh, I mean, even tens of thousands of rows cause this to not sort of function very well.
Okay.
Yeah, it's tempting to use this as a report replacement, but it's not really fit for it.
Yeah. No, that's not the idea. The idea is to have, the pattern in which you have a list of rows of records and the ability to operate on those records, either one at a time or several at a time.
Right.
But let's say that one at a time is good. And the idea is to, have the right-click menu that will do the trick, right?
Right. Yep.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. Thank you so much.
You bet, Alex. Happy to help. Yeah, let me know if you guys have any other questions. No other questions in the hopper yet, so. Alex got another question. I think the answer is no, but just in case, is there any way of setting a button to show an icon and text at the same time? Something like what your button debugger running shows at the bottom left of your screen. I'm sure you can probably do this with, well, I mean, probably this. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely image buttons. I don't think there's image and text, but you could absolutely, where's just image button? Close button, unless you switch it on the button. No, you don't. Wizard next, data grid event. Let's see, actions, go back, button, image button, strange. Yeah, here, I mean, I guess probably the only way to do it right now would be to create an image that had the text and button in it, as opposed to like insert an icon directly in to the button itself. You have to do like a bit of Photoshop ahead of time. Or you could even think maybe CSS could let you do some of that if you could, I don't know how you would target. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I think the button concept should be the same for simple forms.
Ignore it was a mispost.
I'm sorry?
That all I wanted to say is that in the new form, the button you select in control type, what type of button it is.
Oh, right,
But
right.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we have a image and text button. You'd have to create an image button with the text you want, I think, to get what you're after.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that would be great if I can put, some font awesome along with the text itself, but it's not the way this works, so that's fine. One last thing related, it's not buttons necessarily, but sometimes, the pills that appear sometime with a little counter inside. Sometimes it appears, when you have the little bell with the number of messages that you haven't read yet. Is there an easy way to do that? To accomplish that? Because
What is it again that you're after? I'm not sure if I'll...
I think they're called pills. When you have an icon like a bell and a little number shown like that, and sometimes when you have a message, there will be a little 1, 2, or 3 showing the number of things that have not been.
I mean, you maybe with a diagram tile you can do that. If you created like a custom diagram tile here. You could create a custom one because you could look at like let's just say my cube is my bell here. Then I could put a circle here. And I could start creating like custom things here, and then I can get its label from data. This would be yeah, label from data, right? And then I can set up the input data, which would be my count. And this would be an integer. And then I can do label from data, and I can select from flow, and I can select count. And then here, I can make it. Right now, the thing is, I can't make it not show at all, I don't think. Unless I can make it.
Maybe some visibility rule.
Yeah, but like, and then here, what you do is you create I create a page. So here'd be a page. On this page, then I would take that diagram tile. I put it, say here, pick it, pick, and it would be there. And then I can create an input flow, and let's just say it's fetching something.
Or just hard code it to count equals 4.
Yeah, and then this would be, 4. It would do something, right? And then I could, I think, just put that, add that page to the dashboard. Garbage text, pick the page I just created, pick it, save. And then if I come here, I'm not sure what that other circle around it is, but there's that. And so you can create these types of experiences with dynamic data using diagram tiles. That's probably the closest you could get. You might be able to find a way to make that thing completely transparent based on its value return.
Yeah,
that value itself would come from whatever the flow that runs. And then you could hook refresh events and other things to it if you needed.
Okay. Thank you. Never thought of using a custom tile.
Yeah, we added these as these sort of drawing elements quite a while ago for scenarios like this.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. All right. Anybody else got any other questions for us? Not, we're at 12:34. We'll go ahead and call it a day. All right, people starting to head out of the lobby. You bet, Alex. Happy to help today. Thanks for all the questions. All right, and I believe tomorrow I won't be here. We'll have Tim Stall. So thanks everybody. Have a great day.